Schlientz.
All right, Randy.
Hey, Randy. You know anybody old, Randy?
That's old. YouTube while you're there. This is not going to
Well, when President Phil called or emailed me and said, could I do an old member talk, because the program had been canceled, I figured, well, I probably have about a half an hour to go through this. So anyway, well, very quickly, theoretically 5 minutes. I was born in Kearney, Nebraska in 1934. Lived there for the first 11 years of my life. And right after the end of World War II, our family moved to California. And then we had a lot of moves. Between 1945 and 49, we moved from California to the state of Washington, to Idaho, back to the state of Washington, and back to California. I was really fortunate in that time period, while in Washington, had a 7th grade teacher who, we had a mechanical drawing class. And after going through that, it turned out I was a real whiz at that. He said, have you ever considered becoming an architect? And I had to go home and look up what an architect did. And, so anyway, that was my introduction to architecture. I went to high school in Mountain View, California, and again had a wonderful teacher who really encouraged me in the field of architecture. Brought in architects from Palo Alto to really tell us what they were doing. As a result, really, I've been thankful for those two teachers all of my life, because they really directed me into the field, and I loved working in architecture. So anyway, they really guided me into the University of California, where I graduated in 1957 with a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture. Went to work in San Jose, and I think I worked for about a month and a half, and I was drafted into the Army, and I spent 2 years at the Army Engineering School at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. And so got out of the service in 1959, came back to to San Jose, and I met my wife-to-be, who was visiting from England on a blind date. And she spent 10 months here. Took me that long to convince her to marry me. Anyway, the following year, 1961, July of 1961, we were married in Bath, England, her home, and beautiful, beautiful city. And we had planned that getting married in England, we'd take a trip in Europe as our honeymoon. So we pre-purchased a Volkswagen Bug, which we picked up in Belgium. And we were married in July, we spent the following 4 months traveling through Europe in the Volkswagen with our camping gear. Our budget was $5 a day. It was incredible. I mean, it was an experience that you just never forget. It was just wonderful. And returned to England in November of '61, and of course we were broke at that point. And I was really fortunate to pick up a job working for a very small architectural firm just outside of Oxford. And it was just an incredible experience, the kind of thing that you would never have in the United States, because I worked on buildings as old as, in fact, one of the jobs I worked on was a small remodeling of a moated castle. And I did plans for a Georgian house. Just the kinds of experiences that you'd never have over here. Finally, the last project I worked on in that office was an overspill community that was expanding, overspill from the city of Oxford. And that was a fantastic project. So anyway, I was really fortunate to have that, that job. Our oldest son was born in England, and we returned to California, not to California. We came with our VW bug to New York City, and we had all of our household goods with us, plus our one-year-old son, and packed everything into the VW bug, put a trailer in the back of it, and drove across the United States to San Jose. And when we arrived in San Jose, I had a very dear friend who called, and it was like a week or two after we'd gotten back, and asked if I was looking for a job, and of course I was. So he hired me, and the firm was Mason and Associates. And some of you are familiar with that. The firm name changed later to Associated Professions, but when I was hired, we had an office in San Jose. I worked there for 2 years, and the fellow that hired me unfortunately died in 1965, and they had to close the San Jose office. So that was my first experience in working over here in Livermore. So that began in 1965. The following year, one of the great experiences of my life, Earl Mason introduced me to Rotary. And so I became a member in 1966. And it was probably one of the greatest things that happened to me. I'm going to have to go back to my notes here because I'm losing where I am.
In Livermore.
Anyway, in Livermore, in 1965, I received my license to practice architecture, and in '68 became a partner in the firm, and that's when the firm name changed to Associated Professions. And have really blessed to have so many people who are members of our club that became clients of our firm. And in 19 let's see, that's where I'm losing it. In 1981, John Shirley called me. I'll never forget that call. He called and said, would you consider being president of the club? And that was probably in 1980, I'm sorry. Anyway, I, in fact, did become president of the club in 1981-82, and I think probably the most significant thing that happened during that year is one of the projects that had been idle for a number of years came back to life, and that was lighting the rodeo stadium, which was a huge project for our club. And so that was really one of the highlights of the year. What was even more interesting is the following year I became the area rep, the year that Rick King was district governor. That was a real experience. Anyway, I hate to say this, it's been a wonderful life here. I agree with our guests from Canada that Livermore is a wonderful place to live. Rotary has been a great blessing for me. I really have enjoyed being a part of the club. It's 48 years this year, so anyway, thank you very much. If you have any questions,
Thank you, Randy. Now we have another old new member talk. Bill Nebo.
That's cute.
Well, Randy may be a little older than I as a member, but not a lot. I've been here a long time. Joined in about 1977. My path in life began in Los Angeles in 1942, where I was born. My brother and I both born there. We were children of a marriage that failed, and in our case, we were sent to foster homes. And my brother and I went together. I hardly remember a time not being in foster home. I was so young. But it was, I must say, for us, it was a good experience. I don't remember foster homes as being unpleasant, childhood fears of some things, but I can remember the good things about them. Before I was 4 years old, I think we were in 3 or 4 homes, and then landed in a home where we remained until I graduated from the 6th grade. And those really became my parents. And really says something about foster care and what it did, because they really shaped my life. I see much of my foster mom, especially in my own attitudes toward things, and I revere and remember them with nothing but love and affection, and honor them as my parents. My mother is still alive, would see us every weekend for a while, and every other weekend. And then in the 6th grade, my brother and I moved to live with her in Alhambra, California. That's where I was born. So there I attended a school that went through 8th grade, kind of like Junction now. And it was like Junction. It was the school where I think there's only 2 of us in my grade that went to college. I think more went to jail than to college. A bunch. And we could have used a READY program. I mean, back at that. Think about my colleagues who could have used READY. I'm glad that we have that now. I then went to Alhambra High School, which was a very good high school. And after that, I went to the University of California at Los Angeles for 4 years. I made a change in my desires in life. I won't bore you with how that happened. It was a huge change for me. I was very interested in electrical engineering and all things dealing with mechanical things. I remember 2 friends and I decided we'd make a rocket when we were in my 10th grade, and did a lot of research. This is after I learned about electrical systems, when I decided I was going to electrocute my brother once when I was mad at him. I learned about how all that worked, and so I was applying that to my knowledge of rockets. Found out that all I needed was hydrogen peroxide, a little can of liquid oxygen if I could just get it. So I asked my mother to talk to one of the engineers she was then dating to get me a little liquid oxygen. I remember her waking me up that night saying, "Billy, what are you building?" I said, "Well, we're building a rocket." She said, my friend says you're building a bomb." So that was the end of my rocketry. But my interest in all things mechanical and electrical continued. But I gave that up in my junior year of high school. A huge experience. Started with the reading of the play Our Town. But I never lost my love of that. So I went into the ministry. That's when I decided I would pursue what I did, or what I did for a living. And I went to UCLA. I majored in philosophy. One sidelight is I was not expecting it, but all of us were required to be in the ROTC for 2 years. That ended, I think, when I left. They killed that program, but it was very much alive when I entered college, and I only found out about it when I filled out my form for classes, and they asked where was my ROTC, and I said, "I don't know, where's yours?" "Yours is going to be on this card, young man, if you want to graduate." So for 2 years, like all the other male students, I spent time marching around and trying to be insignificant. And I ended up, much to my chagrin, leaving that program as Drill Sergeant Nebo. I tell my family they got the wrong person, and my daughter says, "No, they didn't, Dad. That's really you." So I graduated from college. I went to seminary at San Francisco Theological Seminary in San Anselmo. And while I was there, I went to work in San Francisco as a seminary assistant, working with senior high and junior high kids, and then with college-age kids as those kids got older. I developed a youth group that spanned, I think, 7 churches in the end, because we had smaller churches, and to get a group of youth, if you know anything about youth groups, you need critical mass to make those things work. You really do. And so I had to spread that around. And it was when the 60s was gaining steam, and the kids' hair was getting longer, and the politics were getting wilder. And my group was full of all of the campus revolutionaries, and they all eschewed authority. So it was kind of an interesting situation with Drill Sergeant Bill running this group of protesters from high school, and we got along quite well. I met my wife Jean there. We married in 1970, And in 1972, I received a call to pastorate here in Livermore. Moved here in '72. Town was about 35,000, I believe. And my wife had come from San Francisco, lived there all her life, then gone up to work in Seattle. And when she was working there, we were courting by airplane. And so when I brought her to Livermore, I knew this could not compare to San Francisco. And so I kept trying to tell her, well, remember, we're only a short drive away from San Francisco. And I hear from my friends that it's only 10 degrees hotter in the summer and 10 degrees cooler than San Francisco. That was totally bogus. That very summer when it was 115 for a week, you remember that one? And I remember it was just silent between us about the future. But I began to notice my wife did not put pictures on the wall. It took 3 years before Jeannie decided we're really here and this is the town where I want to live. I used to tell her, well, First Street it looks like San Fernando Road to me. And she said, well, who wants to live on San Fernando Road? I visited there once. The town has changed a good deal since that time, as we all know. I am very happy to have been part of that. My children were born here. My daughter Valerie in 1978, my son Christopher in 1979. And my daughter Valerie is teaching here pleasantly first at Livermore High. Now she's at Granada High, where she teaches English and also is a track coach. She coaches the sprinters and has dragged her 71-year-old father into helping her do that kind of thing, which at 71 is something to deal with sprinters who are in high school. But I don't run a jump anymore, that's for sure. I came in '72 as an assistant pastor. In '76, I became the senior pastor of the church, and I remained that until 2006 when I retired. And that meant I was here all that time as a pastor. Livermore Rotary was a great part. It would help me integrate into this town. Larry Backen brought me in. He came to me one day in my office and said, why don't you join something in town where you deal with people on their terms? And it was kind of a challenge. And so I came and visited and thought, well, it certainly will be on their terms, and decided this is the place to come. And my wife, Jean, really pressed Rotary. And she said, you need, as a man, to have male friends. You have friends at the church, but they're more like your colleagues. You have parishioners, but to have real male friends like when you were in high school or college. She said, I worry about you if something were to happen to me. I joined Rotary, and that's exactly what happened. I made the male friends of my life, and female friends as well, when women became part of this club. That kind of profound friendship is something I love about Rotary, and I'm eternally grateful for it. I see lots of the people who are in that category for me. In fact, I look back, and I did Chris and Patty's wedding, the Ising's wedding. I did Paul Thompson's wedding. You know, all these wedding pictures with all of us young with pork chop sideburns and all that stuff. I joined Rotary and found that in Rotary, not only was the sense of fellowship profound, but also the sense of service. I looked at all the things we've done in the years I've been here, and they're really incredible. I came when we were trying to light Robertson, and we did that. I remember when we bought the house under Barry Schrader, we all worked at that. We were all a lot younger, and we couldn't work at that. And then sold that. We bought another one. It was a little more hard, but we still did it. We've had all the projects that we've heard about earlier that we've done, and it's been a wonderful thing to be part of that kind of service. I was president for the club, as you remember, not too long ago. I remember promising everybody I would consider presidency or something when I retired. I didn't think that would ever happen. I thought I would move or something, but I didn't, and so it came back to haunt me. I became president, and it was a great experience of learning what the club does profoundly, and also what we do as Rotarians around the world, especially going to Rotary International. My wife had a marvelous time, and thinks the projects are things that she'll always remember as being projects that she is glad to be part of. So that's my life here and with Livermore. Thank you very much.
And TJ,
Do you have time for two short announcements?
not yet. Maybe at the end. Because right now, we're going to get the lowdown on the school system around here from Sam Steele.
School days.
Is that D-A-Z-E?
Yeah.
All right, everybody wake up.
Oh, yeah, this sounds weird.
I'm ready for my picture. Yeah, ready for my picture. We start with this.
Little smile.
You learn that from professional speakers that come here, and these guys stand up, and all of a sudden they'll be in the middle of talking, they'll go. Okay, very, very good, because like Sheila knows, they take some really bad pictures if you don't stage for it. Are we there yet, guys? Okay, well, I have a couple of questions first that you're going to find for me and put up on the board, and then we're going to talk about the path that I took to become an educator. First question is, how long has Sam been a Rotarian? And next slide. Got a clicker for me? Or
You want the clicker?
Yeah.
You were asking for an awful lot.
I'm a demanding guy. I'm a teacher.
Hold on a second. Oh, yeah, go ahead. You can have it.
Okay, what do I push?
A little arrow to the right.
One to the right, a little arrow to the right?
Yeah.
Okay.
arrow to the right.
What did Sam do before he became a teacher? Oh, somebody knows the answer over there, but there's a lot of other things I did before that. You know, ski bump. Well, I'll give you a candy bar or a bottle of wine. You put it in
I heard
this, right?
retail, you're in retail.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, I graduated from Granada High School in 1969, so I've lived here a long time. In fact, Granada is now celebrating their 50th anniversary of being a school. I graduated from Nebo College. That's before they had any campus here. I drove to Hayward for 2 years. In the middle of that, my mom and dad moved away, and I lived with my sister Nancy, and they left me here. I'm not sure what that message was. You know, in 71 school year, I attended Cal State at Hayward. It wasn't working out for me too well. I didn't have a real interest in school. The society was in an uproar. My brother's wife was there telling me I should move to Canada. There was lots of things going on. I went ski bumming for the winter, and then I came back and from backpacking, and in the middle of summer started a job because I got married that year. I then graduated from San Jose State. I got a BS in marketing and a minor in speech. And then I graduated from Chapman University with a CLAD clear multiple subject teaching credential in 2001. And then just recently I finished up my single subjects in both civics, U.S. history, and econ in 2011. So I've sort of worked my way through the educational program so that I could get myself to be a proficient teacher. Okay, this is, you press the button and...
I'll do it, just tell me.
Oh, just next. Next. Career path. I was a paper boy from my age of 10 to 15. I delivered the Livermore Herald and News
Wow.
Really?
on Route A1. And I did that for 5 years, got up 3 days a week in the morning and folded the papers. I delivered 200 papers to 212 houses. They always ask me, how come you don't go get more customers? Because they don't want the paper. I've already asked them. You know? And then every summer I worked in Boy Scout camps, and what I did there was teach people how to do scouting skills. I learned them, and then I turned around and taught them for about, well, actually longer than 5 summers, but that's the gist of it. Then when I was 17, I went to work for a ski shop called Terran Brothers. The only person that's nodding his head here is Manuel. Manuel and I first skied together when I was a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
And he used to come out to Terran Brothers, and I would sell him ski equipment. And I did that before I went to college. And then when I went to Chabot, they also worked there. And then when I got back from backpacking, I went to work for Hexcel, the job I was dreamily in love with. I got to make snow skis. Since I really was excited about skiing, I manufactured snow skis, and they moved me to Reno, and I became a production foreman where I taught people how to sand skis and file skis and number them and package them and ship them out places. So after you spend a year and a half or 2 years in the production line, then you become a teacher in the production line. I then moved down here, Nels Fletcher. Some of you know him. He was the owner of several businesses. C.N. Fletcher Corporation had a subdivision called Fletcher's Team and Ski. And just about the time Hexel closed up, I got the opportunity to open up a store in Tracy. Nels wanted to open up a remote store there. And so we opened up a store there. It was an experiment for 3 years. We worked it, and we weren't making any money. So we closed it. And I came back over here and ran the ski operations for Fletcher's Team and Ski until Nels sold the business, and I was out of work again. So then, having my ski experience and retail experience, I went to work for Copeland Sports, where I learned to manage large department store, sporting good type businesses, much like you'd see Dick's Sporting Good now and stuff like that. I ran a 80,000 square foot store with 85 employees, and I worked a lot of hours. I really pounded myself. I will say in that change there between Fletcher's Team and Ski and Copeland Sports, my sister advised me at that time that I should go into teaching. I didn't listen to my sister as much as I should have, but I eventually got the light. I then started when I was 50 years old to be a teacher. So I have put in a lot of time, a lot of experience, a lot of other things before I became a teacher. Next slide. So what brought me to be a teacher was I just didn't know it. I was brought up to be a teacher. Everything I ever did was teach people to do things. But I just didn't know that I should be a teacher until I had 3 great mentors. My sister first on, Leo Croce, who cornered me over here one day and said, "You should be a teacher." And then Keith Caribou, who was a very good friend of mine and a mentor to me that he just thought I would do terrific at this. And so I'm sorry to hear his passing. He was a really good friend of mine. He actually was my high school counselor in high school. So we've had a long experience of time. In the right, I'm teaching people to rock climb. I'm teaching kids how to cook. I'm teaching people how to canoe. Here I'm showing kids how to read maps and compass. It's what I did. Next slide. So life at Del Val. What is it like to teach at a continuations high school? That's sort of the crux of what we're supposed to be here for today. By the way, I have to get this out. You only get 4 more minutes out of me. TJ, I will leave you 1 more minute on the end here, okay? First off, there are no bad kids. That young man you met today, people had labeled him bad kid. We don't have any bad kids in this community. We don't have any bad kids in our schools. They need direction, they need help. Many of them have very poor support systems. They need our school system to help get them through this time in their life. And that's what we do here. So every child can learn. They may have come with a huge pile of baggage with them. They may have all kinds of problems. I saw a kid today who just started today. He reminds me so much of a young man just 6-7 years ago I worked with that now is finishing up his psychology degree at Chico State. These kids have a hard time. They'll come in, they'll be real quiet, they'll be very reserved, they're very afraid to take risks. To have Cameron come up here and talk today was a big step in his life. That's, they'll do risky behavior and other things, but they're afraid to take a risk, and so you have to help them through that part of life. And Rotary, identifying them and having them come up here and speak, that's a huge step for many of them. Patience. Boy, do you have to have patience at a continuation school. These young men and women are going to push your envelope. They're going to push you because they've been able to do that in the past, and nobody said, no, that's not how it's done. And they will be very tempting on your patience. Sometimes you leave school and you can be very frustrated, but you realize that you just have to be patient. You have to wait for them to grow up. They'll eventually get there. I did, you did, they will too. They're going to make it. We have count your successes. I mean, if you dwell on the kids that are carrying a burden that aren't surviving, then you can't solve everybody's problems. But you could take the ones who are successful and keep moving forward with them. It's just, you don't give up, but you do have to count your successes and be happy and joyful in that. So every day is a new day. I can tell you, Cameron, in October, he had a few choice words to call me. And some interesting hand symbols. Yet that was then, and this is now. Okay? And Cameron is a different person today than he was then. And so you can't carry the burden of yesterday's events with you. You'll never survive this. It'll kill you. You know, if you carry a grudge, if you let kids, do stuff and then you go, you're through. You can't do this. You have to, every day's a new day. I may put a kid out one day and the very next day he's in my classroom, I welcome him, I shake his hand, I congratulate him on being there and start to work again. We don't give up and we don't carry the burden forward, okay? Rejoice at graduation. Every student that graduates will drop out without you. So if we have 100 seniors at our school and 72 of them get a diploma, we celebrate the 72. Those are 72 kids that were not serviced by the regular school system, that would have been dropouts of a regular school system, and they would not have a high school diploma. So we need to celebrate that event, okay? Boys, am I getting pretty close here? Yeah. Okay, next slide. Rotary Scouting in school. There has to be a balance in life. Boys, I do Boy Scouting because I get to meet boys with positive attitudes, with supporting mentors. And then Rotary helps me because I get a worldly projection and a connection of Rotary. This is a picture taken this morning, by the way, at the flagpole. Okay, next slide. I won't not go over the Rotary path, let's just go past that. So what's next? Okay, I climb mountains, I take kids there. Next. We catch fish. And then I celebrate my grandkids. And the last thing, I just paddle off on the next adventure. I'm a voyager through this life, and education is just part of that. Thank you. Here's your magic tool.
Thank you, Sam.
It worked really well. Technology.
Yeah, you can have